Difficult. Women.
Hey.
Hi.
How are you?
So good. I mean, not really, but you know what I mean.
So everything's perfect.
Great.
What do you mean? Everything's wonderful.
Oh my gosh. My mom, bless her heart, she sent me this whole thing today that said like, it was a conversation with a woman and God. And just the conversation really was like, but I feel like I'm broken. I feel like things are falling apart and I don't know what to do. And God is just like, you're not broken. You have to like shed these things and go through hard times in order to like rise above and be your true self, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. So I'm going to get that tattooed on my back. Just a phoenix rising from the ashes. Because I really relate to that of just feeling.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us
lost.
do right now. There's just
everybody, every single person I talk to, all of our love. Oh, I guess we should introduce myself. Okay, hi, I'm Marie.
I'm Katy, and this is the Difficult Women podcast that you're listening to.
Yes,
if you didn't know, if you accidentally hit something you didn't mean to.
Who are these girls? But just want to say all our love to California, or just the whole West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Because that is it. I cannot imagine going through the pandemic only having like fresh air outside to breathe, to sit in your backyard and to have that because you can't go inside anywhere. And then to all of a sudden not be able to go outside. You have to stay inside. And
yeah, the shit is really hitting the fan and all. I was just sort of seeing a little post about how, we're in a time now where it used to be there'd be like one emergency at a time. And now we're entering a time where all these emergencies are happening at once. And this is really why it's important that we start putting people in office that are going to make some real changes and not this like political hubbub and change. But like really we need more than look, if Black Lives Matter is in your bag and feminism is in your bag, the one thing you should care about is the environment because we all have to deal with that. So also, if those other things aren't your bag, then what are you doing with your life?
Right. There is another hurricane. I mean, it's hurricane season. So
right. No, we're going to get pummeled on both sides. I know right now it's there's flooding, I think, in like Maryland and Virginia, too. So it's raining too much on the East Coast and not enough on the West Coast. And so that's all climate change, you guys. Right. I know people don't always believe that, but it's true.
I was curious. I wonder how many states in America right now are in a state of emergency.
I think it's a
lot. Right?
I mean,
whenever Trump says like in Biden's America, it's like, yeah, but
no, this is Trump's America.
Right.
Yeah.
How many? I don't know.
Yeah.
I do really want to quickly talk about, I did a cool thing yesterday. I had partnered with Vote Save America, as everybody knows. I adopted North Carolina. You adopted Pennsylvania.
Yes, and I have.
And yesterday, for the first time, I did calls. I had done texts before, but the calls I was more nervous about calling people. I get nervous calling like my electric company. So I was having a hard time and I was really nervous. And to be honest, like the system I got a little confused at because you do have to like log into this one thing and get a PIN for your phone. But once I figured all that stuff out, because I really truly felt like a grandmother yesterday trying to figure it out, I was able to call, and it's a rotary. It's so well done. The technology is getting there. But it would dial people one after another. And our job yesterday, so again, I partnered with Down Home North Carolina, which is a very small, like community-based organization in North Carolina, focusing on rural North Carolinians because North Carolina is a swing state and that we're just really trying to flip it. And it's these rural voters that we need their vote. So, but particularly yesterday, we were calling about Governor Cooper. They're trying to reelect him. And so I had to learn the script and all that. And I was so ready. And so I started calling people and, to give people hope, it did me. Every single person I spoke to is voting blue all the way, except one person. I did talk to this woman. She was very nice, very kind. She didn't like yell at me or anything, which I was like legitly nervous about. But she said that she was going to be voting not for him and not for Biden. And I just calmly tried to ask, like, do you mind if I ask why? And she said, no, it's my personal opinion and I don't want to discuss it with a stranger. And I was like, fair enough. have a great day, you know? So if that's like the worst, I don't know, you know, I was thinking really, really awful things could happen on these calls.
Well, it could get worse, but I think that like part of it also is that that's fine, you know? That's just part of
fine.
it. Yeah.
But you just can't, I don't know. It was really inspiring to talk to other people. One thing that was a little bit scary is this woman who was obviously older. She said that she was told in her community that on the ballot, the election ballot, they weren't even going to have the Democrats this year.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm sorry. So I was trying to like repeat back to her what I was trying to understand, but it's known in her community, at least of friends or whatever in her town, that Trump is trying to rig the election, so much so that the Democrats won't be on the ballot. And so I explained to her that no, that's not going to happen. But she did say that usually every single election, she's lived in her home for 40 years. Every single election she gets mail, because it sounds like she doesn't have Wi-Fi or a computer or anything. But so she relies on the mail to decide who she's voting for. But she already knew that she's not voting for Trump. But she said that she's only getting Trump mail and that she hasn't received a single thing from Democrats, and that she's very, very concerned that when she does go vote in person, she said that she was going to go vote in person, that Biden wouldn't be on the ballot, and that people are starting to tell them that. And I just had to reassure her that that's not the case. But then also I did look up the phone number for the North Carolina Board of Elections so she could talk to a person that, you know.
Well, I'm certainly concerned about the not getting the mail from Biden, and I also have been noticing that online I'm just like inundated with Trump videos and Trump ads, and not a lot from Biden. And I don't know, I don't think that's a conspiracy. I think that like maybe Biden's team isn't doing enough. I don't know. It really does concern me. I don't know, but I don't know what's going on. Yeah, it's hard to know. I do kind of feel like they're not doing enough. And that's very troubling.
Right. Well, it honestly made me feel like calls are one thing, but like we need people on the ground talking to these people.
Yeah. And I think there are people doing that too. So you have to just keep doing what you can. Everybody's just pitching in what they can.
Yeah. But it was interesting.
Great to hear about, though, and how that worked out. And I haven't done my calls yet, and I really want to. You're inspiring me to get on that, and I hope other listeners are inspired to sign up and make some calls themselves, because every call helps, you know.
Well, one thing that I came across, they did warn us in the training that because we are using a system that just keeps calling for you, sometimes you will come to, what did they call it? I can't remember what they said, but basically like they have bots that will flood the system if they can identify that there's a ton of calls going out. So they like we're being hacked basically. And so one call that I got, oh my God, it was so crazy. And thankfully I've been warned, because I would have been so confused had I not been. But the guy answered, hello. I was like, oh, hi, Gary. Gary, is this Gary? Hi, I'm calling from down. He's like, I can't really talk right now, but because I'm about to get married in 10 minutes. And I was like, well, Gary, what are you doing answering the phone? And then he goes, it's this pre-recorded thing to try to keep you on the line longer, so you don't make as many phone calls as possible.
Wow, that's
But
amazing.
I was totally like, Gary, come on. Like, what are you doing answering the phone? You're getting married, you know?
Right,
and it was like, was it a voiceover actor? Like, who? I don't know, because then there was like somebody saying like, they're doing photographs in the parlor. And so I was totally taken and thought that it was a real thing. But no,
that's interesting that they would use that. I know that technology exists, because when I used to work at my sandwich shop, and we would get calls from like the random companies, and energy companies or phone companies, and you'd answer the phone and you'd be like, hello, and they'd be like, oh, hello, and I'd be like, hello, and they'd be like, oh, I can't really hear you, and I'd be like, oh, sorry, hello, can you hear me now? Hello? I'm like, oh, I can hear you now. I'm like, oh, cool, great, like, hello, like, thanks for calling, what do you need? Like, oh, yes, so I'm just calling from the energy company. I'm like, oh yeah, no, we don't do our bills that way. And as you're talking to them, you start to realize like, oh, that's not a real person.
Right.
I'm like trying to have it's so creepy how they do it. And that's such a big trip where they're like, oh, they trick you by the like, I can't quite
getting
hear you.
married in
like,
10 minutes.
Oh.
Yeah.
But even just the like, I didn't, oh, are you there? Are you there? Like that. You're like,
that.
That makes you feel like it's a real person.
Right. Because you wouldn't have a robot do that. Or
well,
like a fake thing.
But they do.
It sounds
they do.
real. Right.
But that's that's what's so, I feel worried for like older people when they're getting like bamboozled. You think like, oh, these old people getting bamboozled, you know, giving their credit card information. It's like, yeah, because the robots are like so realistic.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Be careful, everybody.
Yes. And make calls.
Or make calls, but also
do whatever you can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't give your credit card information out over the phone. Anyway.
I did that one time and one time only.
Yeah, don't do it. So speaking of making moves, I don't know. This is not a good segue. We got some emails. If you want to send us emails, we've been getting some messages about some of our previous episodes, and we thought we might read some of those emails for you now.
Yeah.
One that we got most recently is from Renee, and she writes, "Hi, ladies. I hope you're doing well. I wanted to let you know how much I appreciate you covering Breonna Taylor in your most recent episode. I have lived in Louisville my entire life, and the current events in the city are appalling. Our mayor is a spineless piece of garbage. He's allowing this to drag on and on well beyond acceptable time frame. He has allowed the officers who murdered Breonna to serve as her judge and jury, as we see so much of in this country these days. It makes me sick. My heart aches for Breonna's loved ones. My heart aches for my divided city. I never realized the magnitude of racism and hate that lives here in what's supposed to be the most progressive and liberal city in Kentucky. I also wanted to provide you with some resources in case you're interested in seeing the raw day-to-day of what's taking place in Louisville. There are rumors that it will be announced soon that none of the officers involved will be charged, which is disgusting. But then she gives us some resources of live streamers. So if any of our listeners are interested, you can look up on Facebook these following live streamers. There's Tara Bassett, Riot Heart Media, Maxwell Mitchell, and Jason Downey. So everybody can look up those if you're interested in following this story a little bit closer. And then she says, "Thank you for covering the real topics. You all are the best and make my Tuesdays more bearable." So not only was that a lovely message to get, but also what great resources for us to tap into. Yes. I love sharing information.
Mm-hmm. And an update on the Breonna Taylor case is that it actually will be heard by a grand jury.
I did hear that, and I think maybe she sent this email before before that information was released.
Right? But, it was just released 2 days ago, so that's
hopeful.
Something. Yeah. All right. Well, we got another message from Trisha. I listened to your Breonna episode today. Do you know what I heard from my mom's friend, white lady? Kenny didn't get hit with bullets because he used Bree as a human shield. I hate people so much. I literally ran out of the lady's house crying when she said that shit. That's what people need to think in order for police murders to be okay. And so they can go on living their lives without changing. She was a drug dealer and he used her as a shield.
That's nuts.
Isn't that crazy?
It makes me really sad. I think there's also, it reminds me a little bit of when people try to use the excuse of Jacob Blake and how they're like, well, he was a rapist and he did it. Well, first of all, he was not convicted of any of those things. But let's even say that he was. What does that have anything to do with having a police officer shoot you? You know what I mean? Like that, it's the judge and jury thing. You know, we got to keep getting that into our heads that the police officers are not there to be your judge and jury for whatever the situation is. They're there to arrest you if you've done something wrong, you know, and handle the situation. But it's not okay to be killed by, especially with the Breonna Taylor story where she really had done nothing wrong. Right. But people just are really trying to make it be something it's not. I don't know.
Well, it's just so interesting about how white people will tell themselves whatever they can to make themselves feel more comfortable with the situation.
Yeah.
And that's just really,
Well, and that's really what we have to break out of. I think that we have to start getting comfortable with being uncomfortable so that we can have some real movement, you know? And it's okay to feel uncomfortable about something, but then ask yourself, well, why does this make me so uncomfortable? And if you have to do like a timeout or whatever in the middle of a conversation to kind of like figure that out for yourself, then do that and then get back to the conversation when you're ready. But, you know, it's not about justifying things to make you feel comfortable. It's about understanding why that pushed in on you in a way, you know?
Yeah. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for taking the time to email us. We love emails. They make us feel like we're not talking just to ourselves.
Love it.
So thank you all so much for doing that. And thank you so much, Adam and Eve, for
supplying us with more mail, different kinds of mail.
Different kinds of mail. Take it away, ladies.
Free stuff is awesome, but free stuff to spice up your bedroom is even better.
Select almost any one item for 50% off, and then Adam and Eve loads on the free stuff.
Enter offer code HORIO at checkout and get 10 tantalizing free gifts.
A sexy item for him, a special gift for her, and a third item you'll both enjoy.
And 6 free spicy movies.
Ooh! Plus, free shipping.
That's HORIO, WHOREO, HORIO at adamandeve.com. So today we are just going to talk a little bit about something that happened to us this week, which was sort of interesting and brings up a lot of, I think, a conversation about a couple things.
Women hating on women.
Yeah, we're not into that.
Canceling, trying to cancel women. I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot. Wrong week to fuck with us. That's for sure. Yeah. Also, I mean, come on, with everything that's happening. I don't know. Anyway, yes, continue.
Well, so the backstory is just that we received a notification that somebody on Twitter was sort of shit talking us, basically saying that she had found an old email from us where we had some correspondence and how we had turned down doing one of her shows that she'd asked us to do that did take place in a strip club. And the way she phrased it was sort of trying to say that we didn't want to do it because of our image. And she didn't come to us personally to talk about her grievance. She just decided to put us on blast on Twitter. And it definitely put us in a position where we're like, oh, is she trying to cancel us? Like, what is happening right now?
Yeah, the last of her tweet said that we were the worst kind of women.
Right. And she's sort of implying that we are hypocritical for having this ban, but then what, in her view, we are not supporting sex workers, which the whole thing was upsetting because I think that, like, this is sort of, when we talk about how we don't like cancel culture, this is kind of it, right? So here's this person bringing up something that happened 4 years ago and also doesn't know anything about us as individuals, doesn't know what the circumstances were in which we turned that particular show down, and then decides she's just going to label us as not being sex positive the way that we are, you know? And what is that about? Like, why?
It came out of nowhere. Like you said, it happened 4 years ago. But to put us on blast like that and then to say that we're the worst kind of women, that really hurt. It just really hurt. And I knew that we were going to be talking about women shitting on other women, or, tearing other women down is a better way to put it. But it's just really interesting. And I don't know why this woman decided to do it this week, or if it really just struck a chord with her and she really had to put us on blast. We didn't respond because honestly, we couldn't have won. I mean, there's no winning in something like this. So we never responded to it. But that's why, Katy and I had a lot of behind the scenes conversations about it. But then also we thought it was worth just discussing openly because it did happen to us and we don't want it to happen to other women. It's not.
Yeah. And I think that
cool.
And I think part of there's a couple of different things happening here, but one of them is that, like, if you have beef with somebody, like, at least first come to them. You know, and if the response is bad and then you want to put them on blast, like, I think that in some ways having the internet as a tool for that kind of thing can be really useful, right? Because you can, if someone's being two-faced, you can say, like, they're telling you this to your face, but then when we had our private conversation, they said this, and it's, holding people accountable for things. But you have to have the initial conversation first. You can't just be like, this person sucks, I mean, you can, but I think it's just like, why right now? And it's funny when people do try to cancel us, which is pretty rare, but the times it's happened, it's tended to be from very liberal people accusing us of not being like their type of liberal, or like their, living up to every exact standard that they wanted from us. And I just want to talk about, and specifically, like, with this sort of scenario, I just want to clarify too that we are very, very sex positive, and we are very pro sex workers, and we are very pro sex workers having safe environments to be working in. Sex work is work. Mm-hmm. And in this particular case, this idea, if it seemed hypocritical that we didn't want to perform in a strip club, I don't think that those things are mutually exclusive. You know, we've talked in the past about how we've had some bad experiences in certain environments, and not necessarily all, you know, sex type environments, but certainly in different environments where we're like, you know, our message is getting lost here and we're not particularly comfortable in this environment. Does that mean that we don't support the environment? No. Why can't it be both? You know, why can't you don't know me as an individual human being. You don't know Marie. You don't know what our previous experiences have been. You don't know what our experiences have been as a band. Mm-hmm. And this idea that like we owe anybody anything is frustrating, to say the least.
It just goes back to consent. You can say no to a show. And when this first all happened, you know, I saw the tweet. I immediately called Katy and was like, oh, how are we going to respond? And your first response was like, obviously, we're not going to say anything. But then we had lots of conversations about it. But the thing that really hit me hard that you said is that you can say no to any show you want because that is consent. And if anybody needs to understand that is a booker who books comedy shows at a strip club. Right. You know, I mean, you have to make sure that all performers involved are comfortable. And if they don't want to be there, then they shouldn't be there and you shouldn't book them and you shouldn't have them there. So you can always say no.
And it's okay to be uncomfortable in that environment, but also support the people that work in that environment.
Right.
I don't think that that's like, I think that that's also, and we talk about this on the pod a lot too, where there's this gray area in everything in life. And it's not just like black and white, like, oh, you're either with sex workers and you want to perform in a strip club or you're against, you know what I mean? Like that doesn't have to be, there's nuance in all of these things. And this assumption too, that we like, I don't know, just making assumptions about why we would do something. First of all, we've also never, ever in our lives ever said anything about our image, even to each other. We don't talk about our image.
Yeah, we fucked our image years ago.
Yeah, we don't.
Like,
yeah,
we don't. What image?
No
Who
image.
cares? There's no image. That wording. I mean, that was the only thing I wanted to write back. Was like, why? I mean, if you're going to put us on blast, you might as well just share the email that we. Because we couldn't even find the message, the behind the scenes message that we shared with this woman. So we don't know exactly what we said or whatever, but it's fine. But we have never said we're concerned about our image.
Absolutely not. And also like things like sex positivity, like part of what sex positivity is also being positive for people that are, you know, making people feel comfortable wherever they're at in their sexuality, you know? Mm-hmm. And like if you... We're not necessarily in this category, but like if you're someone that's not that comfortable around sex, that's okay too. You know what I mean? Just sort of being where you're at and where you want. And like you were saying about the consent, it's like one of the most important things about owning your sexuality and having like comfort in yourself and having like being in power around your own self is boundaries. Mm-hmm. And if our boundary is, you know, this is not something we're comfortable doing, then you should be respecting that boundary. And I would expect a former sex worker or someone that's pro sex workers and all that to understand that. And so that was like a bummer. And I think that that's the other part of, so that's the other side of this is this sort of like women taking down other women, and not just women taking down other women, but like women who are supporting the thing that you support. And then trying to villainize us of all the things that are going on right now, all the people you could be mad at and like trying to put on blast. Like, it's just interesting to me that it's like low hanging fruit. Maybe I don't quite know what that's about.
Yeah. Is it because we're doing so well? Clearly. I mean,
God. Yeah. We're just breaking in the dough.
Just raking in all that unemployment money. Is she coming for my unemployment check? I mean,
oh gosh. Yeah.
Somebody is.
Well, and it makes me think too about like other scenarios in which like women, it is such a common theme too to try to pit women against each other. And we've experienced that where people are trying to do that to us, like trying to get us to hate on other groups or hate on whatever. And, you know, and of course, like there are moments where I maybe given more to that I should, you know what I mean? We all have our moments of getting into the drama, but like overall, like what are we doing, you guys?
Yeah. Just trying to relate this story now to my past. I mean, I was bullied a lot growing up. I go back to like, because of maybe I grew boobs quicker than, you know, all the other kids. And so I was made fun of that. And I had hips and I had a terrible haircut. I was trying to be Rachel from Friends and it turned out to be a mullet. But I'll never forget in 5th grade, some girls tried to glue me to a chair. Did I tell you that story?
No.
Yeah. I came in from recess and sat down in my chair with all these girls turning quickly to me, and I was like, what's happening? Are we all going to be friends now? I got real excited because they were all finally paying attention to me. And no, it was because they had put glue all over my chair, and I did not stick to the chair. I just had glue all over my outfit for the rest of the day. And it really, really stuck with me. That was in 5th grade.
No pun intended.
But I was bullied, growing up by only women.
Right.
And that it was a big bummer. And then I was bullied for having, only boys who were friends, not necessarily boyfriends, but like boys who were friends in middle school. Because that was just, I think that time though is just so, we're all in this development phase of trying to find who we are and what our values are, our morals and all that. But like more than ever, it's like peer pressure. You're just like looking to your other friends. And if you have one mean girl in your group, then like it kind of sours the whole group.
Sure.
I don't know.
Well, I think the other thing that's interesting is what you say about like, we're maybe developing earlier than like the other girls, and maybe you were getting, and you may not have even been aware of it.
Oh,
but you may have been getting
unaware.
More, but maybe we were getting more attention from the boys, even just them like looking at you more or whatever. And it's interesting, I think, like that girl on girl, girl against girl kind of whatever that is. A lot of it, I think, does stem from jealousy and and you were saying this earlier, but like attention, and that like if you feel like, and again, it's interesting how it's the attention from men. Do you know? And again, I don't know if in our particular case it was so much about that, but it is interesting that jealousy does propel people to shit on other people. That's like a really, really, really big reason why people shit on other people, is because they're jealous of something about them. And again, I'm not claiming that this woman is jealous of us per se, but I think you just have to ask yourself, like, what is my motivation in tearing this person down right now?
Right.
Especially without having talked to them.
Why put glue on a chair for a child to sit in?
Well, I mean that.
What's your motivation?
But clearly the motivation is like something was going on, whether you were aware of it or not, where they like were jealous of you, or they wanted to embarrass you because they thought they wanted to take you down a notch because they thought you were too high on your horse or whatever it was. That's like why those things happen. So, but again, like instead of doing that, they could have just like befriended you and, been like, oh, let's, you got big boobs. Can I get some boy attention from that? Can we be friends and the boys will talk to me or whatever?
It'll reflect off. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just get a little bit of, but it's like the animal brain's kicking and we don't like make great decisions. And again, we've all done a little bit of that in our jealousy. We say mean things about other people. So it's
totally
natural on one level, but we're as you're getting grown up, got to do something about that.
Right. And especially nowadays. Come on.
Yeah.
We all got to be bringing each other together rather than tearing each other apart.
And I think also, we love to preach this too, but that you have to really understand other people's perspectives when they make decisions or when they say things or when things happen. Like if you don't know the whole story, then it's really hard for you to just say, oh, this is how these people are. Because you don't know what people are going through. You don't know what happened to them in a particular environment that maybe they're not comfortable then putting themselves back in that environment. You just don't know. And I think the other thing that occurs to me is, and I feel like we may have mentioned this once before on the pod, but this sort of idea that we are told, and this is not true, but we are told by society that there's only enough space for a certain amount of women. And there's only enough space for a certain amount of, minorities or something, right? In any kind of, in the entertainment industry or whatever it is. So then you have these women pitted against each other, trying to tear each other down because they don't feel like there's enough room for them, right? So if their feeling is like, well, they're not saying, they claim to be, the voice of women everywhere or whatever. Well, they're not my voice. So I'm going to tear them down and, try to take their place. I don't even know if she wants to take our place, but just like this sense, it comes from a sense of there not being enough for everybody, not enough room for everybody, not enough like space for everybody. And I think that's what I think about specifically women against women. Because I don't always see, not to say that men have been getting put on blast and canceled too, for various reasons. But I do see this sort of like female hate, right? We love these stories of like women against women. And I think part of it, again, is coming from this sense of like, you know, it's a man's world. And if we don't, you know, fight for our little space against the other women, there won't be any space for us. And I think that like we just need to eliminate that. That's a very, you know, patriarchal way of thinking about things. And if we can eliminate that and say like, look, your show, there's space for your show. That's probably a great show. And there's also space for us to maybe not participate in that show. Maybe we come and see it and support it, you know, but we might just not be feeling. I'd also said earlier today to you about this idea too, that like in the thing that we do, and again, as a sex worker, one would understand this, I would imagine, is that there's a fine line between feeling empowered by your message and by what you do and feeling exploited by it. And it's not to say that that particular show would be trying to exploit us, but sometimes it's the audience itself. You know, we've had some bad experiences where we're in a position where the audience is like not really picking up what we're putting down. And then all of a sudden we're on stage and it feels yucky. It doesn't feel like powerful anymore. And we don't talk about that so much, but that's definitely part of this. Well,
in comedy, one of the number one rules is know your audience. And so going into a situation like that, knowing your audience, we've known from past experiences, our stuff just doesn't hit quite right.
Yeah. I mean, if you just sort of when you look up like women against women and all that stuff out there, we're sort of like, it's weirdly ingrained. It's funny too to me that when this happens like with a liberal person like shitting on other liberal people, especially women feminists shitting on other feminists, and like you're not doing feminism right because you're not doing it my way or whatever it is. There's been some studies done where that almost, and we've talked about this before too, but like almost 90% of women and men both are biased against women. So it's like, you know, when this sort of stuff happens, I also feel like it is just a thing that is ingrained in your brain. And it's just, and maybe you feel more comfortable taking down another woman, and maybe it's harder to take down a man, or there's something in you're like, oh, women are untrustworthy, or women are, you know, two-faced, or whatever, these sort of like things that get like woven into your subconscious that are not true, you know, but we have these biases that we carry around with us all the time. So I don't know if that's like part of it. I mean, I want to, like, when this sort of stuff happens, like, our instinct is always to kind of like talk about it and have like a conversation. And what has to be done to start dismantling that, you know? I think it's hard too in this situation where like, do we respond to this woman? Do we not respond to her? Is she going to hear about this podcast? I don't really know. I think part of it is that like, if we just were to reach out to her and be like, hey, like, what are you talking about? There's also this fear of like, then they use that to, you know, put that on blast and be like, oh, look at these women trying to, I don't know what they would say, that we're trying to cover up something, which we're not. I mean, there's nothing to cover up.
Yeah. It's just a lose-lose situation. I just don't understand women who do that particular thing.
Well, I feel like also maybe just navigating the cancel culture thing that we're living in right now. And if like it's becoming more and more acceptable to just like quote unquote put people on blast like that without having like a real conversation first or having any real, sometimes with no evidence. I mean, in this case, she claims to have evidence because she has a message from us, but like what she doesn't have evidence about is like where we were at that time in our lives. And like those, you know, she doesn't have any real background about that scenario. So I just like caution everybody from not only making those moves with your knee-jerk reaction before you know the whole story. And I think this is a good analogy for like this whole political world we're in right now, but also check your sources, double check it. If you're going to repost something from somebody that they're saying like, oh, so-and-so is a nightmare to work with or whatever the thing would be, like double check that stuff before we start spreading our information around like that, because we are living in this time of the internet where you really can, news travels fast, but you don't want it to be fake news, you know? You don't want to be like participating in somebody's demise before you have all the information. And I think we've all been guilty of that to certain extents.
I know. I'm trying really hard to read the whole article before I share.
And also be aware of like, where does the article come from? Like whose that voice is being, you know. And I think, again, like in this case, from that perspective, if one were to see that tweet and not know much about us, and then go like, what fucking bitches? Like, let's take them down.
It's a witch hunt, for sure.
Yeah, it becomes sort of like a witch hunt. And there's this movie that came out, Little Darling. What is it called? or just cuties, little cuties or something.
Oh yeah,
Um,
Cuties. I think just Cuties.
yeah, Cuties on Netflix, and people are really like freaking out about it because they feel like it's it's overly sexualizing children. And what they're missing is, I think that the movie, I have not seen the movie yet and I do want to see it, but what they're missing is that the movie is about that, and they're kind of destroying this woman's career, this Senegalese woman who has had this amazing story to tell. They're like starting to villainize her before having all the information. So I think, again, I've done it. Like, I think we've all done it to some degree, but we're just getting more and more into this point in time where we have to like check it a little bit. And to have it happen to you, you're like, oh, interesting. I see how this happens.
I know.
Okay. All right. Okay. Lesson learned. Good to know.
I mean, you put yourself out there in the spotlight, we're in showbiz and this sort of stuff sort of happens, but it still kind of tings.
Tings. It tings.
It tings.
It tings. This means stings and
stings. It stings.
Yeah,
it stings.
it tings.
It tings. Oh God. That's that. We're just doing a real short episode this week for you because there's just,
there's a lot going on. Yeah.
But there is some new information happening about Breonna Taylor. Stay informed. Please stay informed. And just keep, and have a balance of news and personal freedom of life.
Yeah.
Because
and check your sources and all that stuff.
Yes.
And
Cool.
if you see mean things about us online, mostly we don't care. This one hurt because it was from a woman. Oh, here, a couple other things that we got online this week. We got a gentleman who watched the vasectomy video and he said, mildly entertaining. That was fun. Okay. That doesn't even hurt as much. You're like, all right, well.
I was like, that's that. Well, at least he was honest.
Well, he took a lot of effort to just tell us that he thought it was okay, which is sort of like.
Thank you.
And then what was the other? Oh, yes. And then we had the other, they watched the
another
mansplain
man
video.
Yes. It came for the laughs, stayed for the boobs.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's nice. Is that a nice thing to say? I knew he wasn't talking about me. I mean, that's the thing. I was like, yes, her boobs are great.
I'm curious if people, I wanted to then see if he had any videos and then to comment, came for the laughs, stayed for the bulge in your pants.
Well, and also the thing is, the answer is no, he doesn't have anything because these people, even the guy that writes mildly entertaining, it's like, what have you made? Let me see what you made. It's that kind of thing. So, but it's funny how when a guy says shitty stuff about us, it doesn't bother me as much as when a woman says it.
Yes, I agree. I completely agree.
Because I feel like don't you understand our the things that we've been going through? And my answer would be yes, of course you understand. You've been through them too. So why would you contribute to that right now?
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I would have to say 98% of our troll comments are from men. So
yes, that's true.
We got that then. Winning.
And since our incel episode, a huge percentage of the 98% is also from incels. So they just love to get on that boat.
If ever you want a good old laugh and scare, go on over to the incel episode and read the comments in YouTube.
Speaking of which, just on a side note, since we have to talk about something, on a side note, I saw somebody post something on Facebook. It was a woman's experience with her son and seeing stuff online. And she was like, everybody out there who's afraid of incels and having these boys kind of be radicalized against the liberal people and women and all that, be careful of what your boys are ingesting, because there's been this thing where a meme will pop up. Teenage boys, young kids, a meme will pop up and it's kind of offensive. Maybe it's against women or something, but the boys are kind of young and they don't get all the nuance and they think it's kind of funny, or their friends think it's funny. So they spread it around. And then what happens is they get called out by a girl or by a teacher and kind of publicly humiliated and been no. Look at this. You're a anti-woman, you're a misogynist, you're a racist, or whatever it is, with these kids not fully even understanding what it is they're spreading. And then they feel embarrassed. And then these incel type groups kind of swoop in and say, see, such sensitive snowflakes. See, what's the big deal? It's just a joke. It's just a joke. So these young boys, especially these young white boys, are getting indoctrinated with these cycles of shame. And what it happens is it radicalizes them into incel type, anti-woman, anti-Black Lives Matter, anti-everything types of people, because they then feel like they've been attacked because they have been, So she was saying, as a mother, in case there's any mothers of teenage boys out there, one thing you can do, just in terms of talking about like stuff on the internet, you know what I mean, and how things can go wrong and messages can get crossed. She was saying as a mother, you can kind of step up and be a little bit more active in what your children are watching, especially like younger as they move into like later teenhood. And if they do post something wrong, don't like freak out, but like explain to them like why that's a problem. And then just start really educating them on those terms, because a lot of this stuff just parents aren't watching. They just don't even know what's happening kind of behind the scenes. And at a certain point, like your brain's going to get formed into this idea that like women suck and they just are here to humiliate us, you know?
Oh,
and like, I think that that's just like a thing that, you know, we just don't talk about at all. So in terms, again, of like fake news and internet and like using the internet properly, like, know, you know, kind of know what's going on with your kids, and also don't shit on people.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, if anyone has anything to say to us, you can send us an email, difficultwomenpodcast@gmail.com. We are on Patreon. Apparently, this has been a thing this week. If you go to Patreon and look up Reformed Whores, we don't come up because, hello, they're censoring us. They assume that we are selling, soliciting sex, I guess, or something. So you do just have to type in patreon.com/Reformed Whores and we'll come up. You can't search us, but if you just put in the direct address, you will find us and you can become a patron. Because we just did our first live show together since March on Patreon last week. And we're going to do more.
Yeah.
So
tap in on that action.
You know, check out that. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for listening.
Yeah. And I hope everyone's staying safe and taking care of each other.
I admire your strength. I think you are the best. Your heart's so full of love and you look cute in that dress. I think about you all day. I do too, I confess. Oh, I just got a girl